Hey, fans of the Monday Movie Club. This week, Joel chose Stand By Me, which is number 287 on the Franken list. So I actually reviewed this one in 2020. I'm Frank Gaffney. It says it right there. With us always, Joel Fenster, who has his different seasons out. Is there one story that's still not done?
Yes, the last story, The Breathing Method.
The Breathing Method. Didn't somebody say they were doing it?
There's been somebody doing it for the last, when was the book published? In 82, 84? They've been,
Wow.
yeah.
Mark G has the picture up. Gold fucking Cringer. Nappy. And Annie King back in the kitchen where she belongs. All right.
But
Joel.
Tuesday, definitely. All right.
Why stand by me? Joel.
Why stand by me? Two reasons. The first is Annie asked if we could get it in this year, so I graciously threw out something else to put this in.
Shock treatment.
Shock treatment for the second or third year in a row. That's
yes.
That's off the list. Thank God.
Yes.
Oh, now it's coming back.
God damn it.
It'll be back at some point.
Is Shock Treatment the sequel to Rocky Horror?
Yeah, it's the sequel to Rocky Horror.
That nobody wants to watch.
Quasi.
No, people want to watch it. There's a whole cult around the damn thing.
I think I've seen it.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's not Rocky Horror, but it's a fun movie. Anyway.
Right. And what's number two?
No, number two, because it's a great fucking movie.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. But everybody has seen it before, right? Annie, you've seen it before. Okay.
Yes.
So here's the plot. It's adapted from a Stephen King story called The Body. It follows four boys as they set off to find a body of a schoolboy supposedly struck down by a train while walking in the woods. They start out hoping to find fame and end up sharing their hopes and fears in this coming-of-age story that still resonates through the chemistry of four young actors, Will Wheaton, Jerry O'Connell, Corey Feldman, and the beautiful performance by River Phoenix. I mean, his breakdown scene was just lovely, lovely. And it was all brought together by director Rob Reiner, who gets almost everything right in this movie. And look at Rob Reiner's resume. His first directing job, this is Spinal Tap. Then The Lovely, The Sure Thing. I don't know if anybody's seen that movie. Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men. How's that for a great run of films?
Right.
And then it's all downhill from there.
Yeah. Everything after that is crap, for sure.
It's been a while since I read it, but I believe the trivia says that William Goldman only, when he saw that Reiner did both Spinal Tap and this movie, he saw that he could have the funny and the heartwarming stuff that you needed for the Princess Bride. That's when he kind of signed off on Reiner.
Yeah. So, and how great to watch this movie again. I really do love this movie. I was smiling the entire time. It's such a warm, loving movie. And, you know, it has its little bits of drama, if you will. And even though this is 1958, so it's before my time. I certainly wasn't a teenager in 1958. Shut up.
You were born in 1958.
Yes, I was. But it still gets to me because I hope we've all had that little circle of friends we ran around with when we were 13 and doing stupid things and funny things.
Well, and Frank, if I could just jump in for 1 second, it's funny because everyone talks about their generation and whatever, and the kids these days. But like you just said, the 80s, for me, growing up, my friends, we rode bikes. We did just those things. And it was 25 years after this. So absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it's not a generational thing in that you can only relate to it. I think even my kids, you know, the pop culture references change, the things they do change, but they have those little groups where that's what they would do things. And
the basic tenets.
So I mean, and you've seen this too, and all the Gen X pages, they say, you know, back remember the greatest decade ever was the 80s when we used to ride bikes and drink out of the hose and all that stuff. And they were doing that in the 50s. That's my whole.
Yeah, no, I get that. But I'm saying is that they may not drink out of the hose. They may not, you know, ride bicycles as much as they did back then, but they do have things they do that relate into the same thing.
Yeah, they gather in a circle and sit there on Instagram.
Right.
Okay, now we're all sounding like old people.
I'm trying not to.
Get off my screen. All right. So no, of course, absolutely. But you know, even for me, when this movie came out in, what was it, 86?
85, 6, something.
86.
86.
86. The nostalgia was there because, you know, when they sang a particular song or did the theme
Yeah.
from the show, I knew of that. So it wasn't lost on me. Obviously today, nobody would know Lollipop or the theme from
Have Gun Will Travel.
Gun Will Travel.
Yeah.
It's not a thing now, but I certainly knew that stuff in 1986 is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so much of it is adorable because, and I'm sure a lot of it was Rob Reiner reflecting on his childhood because he was a teenager in 1958, saying, you know, the things, you know, you flinched and punching the kid, or all of those things were things I totally remember doing. So it really,
But
really
that
did.
specifically, that was still going on in the early
Flinch?
80s. I definitely
Flinching?
got two
Yeah.
flinching, sure, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, the screenplay got an Oscar nomination for its writers, Bruce Evans and Reynold Gideon, and definitely deserved for me. And the music from the era, it actually produced a best-selling soundtrack, and the title song from 1961 became a hit all over again. It actually went to number 9 on the Billboard charts in 1986, 25 years later.
And
So
I think it was the first song to ever do that.
to rechart?
Yeah, to rechart like that.
No.
No,
but
that's something from the commentary that I was listening to with Rob Reiner. He said it was the first song to ever do that. Others have done it since, but
no.
Okay.
The first song to do that was The Twist. It was the number 1 song in 1960 and the number 1 song in 1962.
The same artist?
Same artist, Chubby Checker. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And the beautiful thing really is I read the story. I don't remember how many of these incidents are directly from the book. We'll discuss that when we get to Joel. But the camaraderie of these boys don't feel forced. I read that he had them hang out with each other for 2 weeks before. But all of them, he really casted so well because and I've even read that they felt they were these characters. They weren't acting because they were these people. So, and so many fabulous adventures on this road trip. Almost in a fantasy kind of way. Like if you're doing this trip, the leeches, the train, everything is so great. It's such great. But you know, in the book, I feel, if I remember correctly, it was much more about all of them. But here, I think Gordy is definitely the focus, the central focus.
Yeah.
And you know, this is a kid who doesn't feel good about himself. His father doesn't really love him, and this is for him, I feel, the moment when he changed and he became the person he was going to become, because this incident with his friends made that change for him, and it empowered him in some way. And I think, you know, he went on to become a successful writer. I mean, he went on to become Stephen King. So
Yeah.
that. And the great, again, another beautiful moment for him is telling the pie eating contest story, because that's when we see, okay, he is a writer and he is going to tell his stories. So, and you could see that he's going to be a great writer. And the story is a beautiful Bartholomé revenge story. It really is. It's great. The leeches were great. I remember that the first time. And when he pulled his underwear and looked down, I was like, oh, God. Perfect. Just perfect. And another thing I wrote was, again, every kid, I got dibs. Did you still say dibs, Mark?
Yeah, sure.
And I guess you wrote shotgun as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then we get to the flash forward at the very end with Richard Dreyfuss and his kids. And then that computer, I'm like, ugh, am I right? That computer. Jeez, that dated the movie right there, if it wasn't dated already. So it's 3.5 stars for me. It's the second best adaptation of a Stephen King story. Fighting for it.
No, behind Shawshank, right?
for sure.
Yeah.
I think what keeps it from being a 4-star movie is, a little bit of contrivance. The whole Kiefer Sutherland and the Bad Boys. I'm like, do we need that? So, 3.5 stars for me. Amy, are you with me on that?
Yeah, I would give it 3.5 stars as well. I didn't take any notes. I've seen the movie maybe 25 times.
Wow.
Okay, I haven't seen it that many times, but I've definitely seen it 4 or 5 times for
Well,
sure.
you all know what a huge Stephen King fan Annie and I always were. And
Yeah.
how I still don't have my Different Seasons book from Lee. Why are you looking so
Lee,
surprised?
if you're listening, please give her book back.
So yeah, I love the movie. There were so many, I haven't seen it probably in 30 years, and there was, okay, maybe 20 years. So many moments where, oh my God, he's about to do this. I remember that line. It was always so funny to me, so weird to me, the way Will Wheaton went, "Twine." It was always like, he says that.
But
Oh.
but perfect.
It was just weird. I have to show off, of course, my fabulous picture.
Amy, that and when he starts running in slow motion from Chopper, same
Yeah.
thing with the face close up.
Yeah,
Yes.
that weird thing he
And
does.
the tilt it down.
Is that
So-
your Jerry O'Connell picture? I can't tell.
Yes,
Yeah,
Jerry.
it's really very bright.
It's-
But yeah,
it's
that's me
very
giving
blurry,
Jerry O'Connell a ride
very blurry.
on my back.
Oh, that's right.
Which you
And
didn't
it's so
really wanna
funny.
do.
What? Oh, yeah. It's so funny. I mean, he's no Jason Bateman. How fat Jerry O'Connell was in this movie as a kid in everybody's memory, but he was not. What was he? 15 pounds overweight, maybe?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
he had a pudgy little face, but he
Yeah.
was not fat.
Well,
And all the
honestly,
fat
compared,
jokes. Yeah.
compared to the other boys, he was
Yeah,
certainly
especially
fat.
Will Wheaton, who looked severely malnourished.
Right.
Yeah, but who
Um,
would have thought that Jerry O'Connell would grow up to be the best looking of the bunch?
Right?
Because
Right.
he's not a good looking kid there.
He's adorable, but yeah. So I don't really have anything to say. I love the movie, 3.5 stars, blah, blah, blah.
That it just reminded me of another thing. It was the green screen or whatever it was when those kids were running from the train at that very last moment when they jump off the track. I'm like, oh, that looks so fake.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I kept thinking the train is a good distance behind when he's. Why don't they put the fucking brake on?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
just
that's-
kept
I said the same
kept beeping.
Yeah.
That's a dick right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stop, buddy. You better move.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep
Right.
going. You're in my way. I'm gonna keep going. But again, such a great moment.
Yeah.
So real drama filled moment, and it's so fun.
Yeah.
And as much as Richard Dreyfuss is not really in it, but he, obviously narrates through it. Such a nice, calming, storytelling voice.
Yeah.
It's just so perfect.
Yeah.
So perfect.
We love Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's got like almost kind of a Morgan Freeman type narration voice.
But now he's an asshole. Okay,
Yeah.
Joel. Why?
Speaking of assholes, say it, Frank.
That's terrible. I would never say that. Speaking of assholes, Joel,
Yes.
why Oregon and not Maine? What the hell happened there?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it was just since they were shooting in Oregon, they just transplanted it that way.
Well, one of the things I read
Does it
was
say
there was
Castle
talk
Rock,
about
Oregon?
Portland,
Yes,
and they didn't realize they were talking about Portland, Maine. They thought Portland, Oregon.
the writers kind of screwed up.
Yeah.
And they wound up shooting there anyway, so it was just kind of like, we're not going to change it. So
Yeah.
big deal.
Okay. Because Stephen King's world really exists in Maine.
Oh, there's if you want to talk about the broader parts of Stephen King's world, then you could deal with the fact that Kiefer Sutherland's character should have appeared in the movie Needful Things because he's in the book, but
Oh, right.
Okay.
All right, Joel. Tell us what you love about Stand By Me.
everything.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really great, sorry to interrupt you, but is that it's only an hour and 38 minutes, something like that.
28 minutes.
Hour and 28 minutes. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's so short that I actually watched it 3 times this week.
Wow.
Good
All right,
Lord.
let's not get crazed.
Get
Well,
real.
no, it was, you know, when I come to play, I come to play, and you know, when I have the time, I had the time.
Well,
There,
I like it, Joel, that I love it actually that you're so immersed in being
well,
prepared.
especially if it's a movie that I love
I
watching.
do. Yeah, I love
And
this
I had
movie.
never, I had listened to the the current disc, the most recent disc, the 4K disc has two commentaries on it. One's an audio commentary just by Rob Reiner, and the other
Oh,
one,
so that's why I watched it 3
yeah, and
times.
the other is a picture-in-picture commentary with Reiner, Will Wheaton, and Corey Feldman. So it was very interesting listening to their observations about the film and background stories about how things were made and what they did and what was going on in their lives at the time. So
Well, that I would definitely listen to and watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
no, and
So,
there was a lot of info. So
all
yeah.
right, so Joel, what about the transfer to the screen? Did they follow it pretty much?
It's a pretty faithful adaptation. There's a few things. The one major thing that's missing is that there's Gordy actually tells two stories in the novella. So the second story, which is called Stud City, is missing. It's about a kid whose brother winds up sleeping with his stepmother. It wouldn't have been appropriate in the film. It wouldn't have worked on the film. But the Revenge of Lord Ass Hogan is
Lord
perfect
Ass.
in there. Yeah, because it's and I think the way they shot it without even trying to hide the ridiculousness of how they actually had to get these people throwing up, you know,
Yeah,
because you can see that there's
Yes.
a hose, you know, next to somebody's face. And in Rob Reiner comments, this one, oh, it's definitely coming out of his mouth, even though the hose is next to his mouth. Oh, this one, it looks like it's coming out of his nose. These two are this. And, you know,
right.
but I think that adds to the imagination of a kid, because a kid
Yeah.
would picture it that way, you know, where it's
Right.
over
Yeah,
the
and and there's so much politically incorrectness in
yeah,
that scene, but it's so funny.
yeah. The other changes that one of the ones you alluded to earlier is that they changed the focus of the story from all
Right.
four boys to Gordy, and that was Rob Reiner's decision. Rob Reiner was able to connect better with the material by making that Gordy the focus, because he kind of could relate to some of that stuff in the
Yeah,
relationship he had with
and I think
Carl.
it
So,
perfectly makes sense since he's the one telling the story.
yeah,
Of course.
Does the character Chris Chambers die in the book as well?
yes, and actually, that was the next thing I was going to mention. Is that's the other big change from the Stephen King story. Is in his story, all three are dead. They all die in very bad ways, but Chris is the one that really affects him the most at the end of the story.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
As it should. I
yeah.
mean, they made a real connection.
yeah, and realizing that the Stephen King story is based on his life, it's very autobiographical.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole leech situation is something he went through.
Oh.
Seeing a dead body when he was a kid was something he went through. You know, his friends all died in horrific ways.
Wow.
I think I read too that after Stephen King watched the movie, he had to leave. He was
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
he said to Rob Reiner, he's like, "I'll be back." He stepped outside but he came back and he said to Rob Reiner, that is, at that time, it was the best adaptation of anything he had written
Yeah.
onto the big screen. And
and
it's
then he added Shawshank to it.
right. Well, yes. And Rob Reiner considers it's his favorite film of the films he's done. It's the one he's most proud of. I think he considers it his best film, even though, as you mentioned earlier, that run of films that he had that are all great, this is the one that he relates to the most.
Of course.
I could
And
feel it. I could feel it.
so
Sure.
the only other change I can think of is in the movie, you know, Ace kind of alludes to the fact that they're going to beat the crap out of the kids at the end. In the book, you actually get to see that. So it wasn't necessary to see. You knew it was going to happen at some point.
Right.
And
Are there any outtakes, like scenes they
there's a couple of minor things that that they have on the 4K disc that they put out recently. It's about 6 minutes of extensions and deletions. The most interesting one is as they're all packing to go on the trip. Just because you get to see a little more of each individual character. Like the one that I remember the most, the scenes really didn't belong in the film anyway, but the one I remember the most is Vern at home quickly eating dinner, and he says he's finished, but you see the big pile of lima beans on his plate. And he's like, okay, Mom, I'm done. I'm getting packed. And she's like, did you finish your dinner? And he's like, yeah. And she goes, even your lima beans? And he stops for a second. He looks down at them and he takes the plate and he dumps it out the window next to him. And okay. You know, it wouldn't have added anything, but
another typical kid moment. For sure. Lima beans.
So but there are a lot of great stories. You know, you mentioned the process shot of the train bearing down on.
Is that what it is? A process.
It's a process shot where they're running in front of a screen essentially. But that entire sequence was put together in such an ingenious way because it's a combination of, I think there's 2 process shots, a long focus lens that actually condenses the middle, so when you see them running from the train, they're actually on the far end of the tracks close to the camera. The train is all the way at the other end, so they were never in any real danger. There's a couple of shots that were shot on a set. They built this wooden plank bridge underneath the bridge to, in case anybody fell, they wouldn't fall. There's shots where it's not them, it's stunt doubles. It's And Rob Reiner has a great story where he couldn't get Wil Wheaton and Jerry O'Connell to give him that fear and crying that he wanted from them.
Yeah, Aim, remember that with the Harry Potter photo?
So, after like 20 takes of them not getting it or understanding it, and it was hot and everybody was tired, he yelled at them and basically said, all these people have been doing all this work for the last few hours. They're exhausted. If you don't do this right this time, I'm going to kill you. And they just got so terrified and upset. They gave him exactly what he wanted. So
Jerry O'Connell's face was pretty terrified.
Oh no, they were. And there's some great. He had Rob Reiner has a great story about Jerry O'Connell's casting, because apparently when he came in, he did the audition and he said it was pretty good, and they were leaning towards giving him the part. And as he was leaving, he looked at Rob Reiner and said, "Hey, aren't you the guy on Channel 5?" Because New York had been running the reruns on Channel 5 of All in the Family. That's what he knew. He's like, he knew him from that. So he's like, well, that kind of helped. He knew who I was, so give him the part.
And I read that he was all excited because he was allowed to curse.
Yes. So and the kids, they were kids during the whole shoot. They would go to malls, and Corey Feldman and River Phoenix were going to bars and drinking beers with the local town kids. And
I'm sure
there's some, Corey Feldman's like, this is the first movie I drank a beer on, and then it was all downhill from here. So anyway, I love this movie. It's a great movie. I don't know what else to say about it. To me, it's a 4-star film. I had friends like this that, I miss them at this point. Some of them are gone. Some of them are
and when he says at the end, he lost touch with them.
Yeah, I will say,
even though he hadn't spoken to Chris in 10 years, he's going to miss him terribly. Yeah, it's true.
There's one other quick thing I'll say is, when I did see this in the theaters, and in 1986, I was 14? No.
17.
17?
17.
17? No. Yeah, I guess I was 17. I can't do the math. I'm tired. It's Sunday. I went to see it in the theater with one of my friends that was part of that group at the time, and we saw it in a theater in Greenwich, which was right next to the train station. And as soon as the train started barreling down on them, the train was coming into the station, because you could feel every time the train came to the station, you could feel the vibrations of it. And
it was actually in Sensurround.
Yes, exactly. Wrong studio, but yes. So anyway,
that's great. So Annie, you asked this to be on the list.
Yeah. So after. Well, we had seen Shawshank, which I've seen so many times, and then we had to watch Apt Pupil, and I couldn't remember it as much, so I had to hunt down, because Amy didn't have her copy of the book. I had to hunt down a copy of the book from a different library because my
Right.
library didn't have it. So I read it all and I said, oh, we really need to watch Stand By Me now from the book. And so
Joel
Joel was kind
acquiesced.
enough
Yes.
to do it. So
And the nice thing is we've watched them in the order there are in the book. Because
That's
Rita
funny.
Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption is Hope Springs Eternal. Apt Pupil is The Summer of Corruption, and The Body is The Fall of Innocence.
yeah.
So
And I had seen the movie a couple of times, but like Amy said, probably in like 20 years haven't. And I thought it was time to watch it again. So, and I really didn't want to forget the book before we got to it next.
Right,
Right,
right.
right.
So I wanted to, and you know what? It's just great. They were all so good in it. It was, really great. Their acting. And my one question was, did they actually make them smoke while they were filming this?
no, they're actually
Yeah.
they're smoking lettuce cigarettes.
Yeah.
Lettuce.
Yes.
But,
That's funny.
yeah, that was interesting because they're what, 13 they're supposed to be, and they're
Yeah, they're
all
supposed at the
Oh.
time, Jerry O'Connell was the youngest. I think he was 12. Corey Feldman and Will Wheaton were 13, and River Phoenix was 14.
That
So,
makes sense.
yeah, and I was like, look at them all smoking. Like
The way they talked about it too, like, oh man, there's nothing better than a
Oh, I love
cigarette.
that. Love that.
Hey, you were smoking at 14, weren't you?
Yeah,
And-
we both were, I think.
Wasn't everybody born in the late 50s, early 60s smoking?
Sure.
Never smoked.
Yeah, me neither.
I also thought Corey Feldman was just so good at his part, like the craziness and everything. That really was just, they did a great job on it. It was a great story. It's just
Right.
heartwarming.
We always talk about, the book was better. Is the book better?
I think it's pretty on par with the book. There may be like one or two things, but like you get the sense of the story,
I think for a great adaptation of a novel, if the novel moves you in a certain way, the movie has to do the same thing. And I think this is one of those times where it goes either way. It's not like, reading, I think The Godfather is a better movie than it is a book at the end of the day, or
Well, I mean, the thing that really worked in the favor for this movie is that it was a short story.
yes.
So
Well,
there was
actually, technically it's a novella, not a short story.
a novella. So, so not a lot of things had to get left behind.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And he still only did it in 88 minutes.
Right.
So, Annie, where you're rating it?
For me, it's a 3.75.
Okay.
Nice.
And the soundtrack, the music,
Yeah.
is
Yeah, I
fabulous.
mean, that's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably wore out that CD because we listen to it all the time. It's
CD.
fun.
I had it on
CD.
cassette.
Cassette.
Oh,
It was on
sorry.
cassette first.
Maybe I had a cassette. I don't know. But yeah, and so of course it's still on my playlist of music, and every time Lollipop comes up, I see them. I see them doing it every single time. It's so adorable.
It was interesting. Rob Reiner tells a story about the song specifically, "Stand By Me" by Ben E. King, and I guess the studio wanted Michael Jackson to re-record the song.
Right.
Once they decided that it was the title and this is where they were going with it, and Rob Reiner kind of put his foot down and was like, "No, the original song is what we have. The rest of it's all." Music from
Yeah, but I mean, it's anachronistic because obviously this is not 1961.
No, but still.
But still. All right.
Anyway.
Okay, Mark G, you have the picture up. Means you love this movie.
I do. And before I go to my notes, I'll just talk to what Joel said about having friends like this. And yes, I did too. And growing up in the Bronx, we all used to.
I think I met them in Algonquin.
Yeah, I was about to say, don't you still have all those friends?
Only one. The one guy that connects us all. He moved into into grammar school in 5th grade, and we became best friends. And yes, we used to play wiffle ball in our front yards all the time and sit on the steps and all that stuff. And I had a few other buddies too that I did grow apart from. Luckily, nobody has passed away. But It was very touching. A year and a half ago when my mom passed away, my other best friend Joey, who I hadn't seen in 25 years, showed up at the wake, which was very, very nice. So it is nice to have those moments from time to time.
Yeah.
Now I will go to my notes. I was 11 when this came out, so I related to this a lot. Although I wouldn't have seen this, it was rated R, and I wasn't allowed to watch rated R movies unless we wanted to discuss it, because my mom that was her rule. So, but I probably saw it a year or
Aw.
two later. And again, my buddy Vic, the best friend I'm talking about, his parents didn't give a shit. So we used to watch all the TNA movies in
Well,
his
you know,
basement.
for an R-rated movie, it's pretty tame.
Yeah.
I would agree.
It's all language related, you know, for
Yeah.
the most part.
Yeah.
Which was fun at the time, of course, to see kids our age cursing like that, you know.
Right.
All the insults and your mom jokes, they were spot on, very similar to me, and my friends, sincerely. And this is also my second favorite Stephen King movie, after Shawshank and before The Shining. It's kind of weird watching as a 49-year-old now, not quite the same, but brought back great memories. Chopper, Sick Balls was highly repeated amongst my brother and my friends. And also love the soundtrack. I know I'm not from that era, but my parents were, and I grew up with all those songs. And
Yeah.
the whole I ran all the way home making fun of him. I mean, as a kid, I was like, oh my God, that's great. I would ask my parents, put the song on. So
Yeah,
and
I
as
would
soon as I
put- I
hear
would-
all that, as
I
soon as I
would
hear any of
certainly-
those songs, it takes me back to this movie as well. Sorry,
I
what's
would
that, Frank?
certainly pull that joke on people when they're trying to tell you a story and just interrupt.
ran
and
all
say,
the
no,
way-
no,
Oh, yeah.
go ahead, and then interrupt.
Yeah.
Totally.
The Lord-ass scene for me was much funnier as a kid, less so now, but I still enjoyed it. The penis leech scared the crap out of me as a kid. I wouldn't go even into a pool because I
Well-
thought leeches.
Can
Well,
I wanna-
incorrect, because it wasn't on his penis; it was on his balls.
right. Just a quick comment, just because a story reminded me of that. They actually, the pond that they fall into, they built
Yeah.
Okay.
and filled so that they could control how deep the kids actually went and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Except, as Corey Feldman said, yes, they built it and they filled it in the middle of the woods. By the time they got to shooting the scene, it was all gross,
Yeah.
like an actual pond
Yeah.
would have been.
But no real leeches in it.
Yeah, so no, there were
Yeah,
no.
that's in the trivia. It was like a month later when they
Yeah.
filmed it.
Oh, that's funny.
That is funny.
So all
Anyway.
that dunking, ugh.
Yeah,
I thought the whole cast was great. I really love. I mean, the kids were fantastic, and Kiefer Sutherland also was perfect. The only part I didn't connect with is Gordy's dad saying it should have been you. I don't buy a guy being the best dad in the world to one son and the worst dad to the other. I understand favoritism, but to say that to your own son, I just felt like it was kind of beating you over the head with, all right, he's a bad dad, and he's
Well,
going to
I
do a lot
mean,
of shit.
yeah, that's the level of asshole he is.
yeah, but having seen the movie 3 times, you'd think I'd know. Wasn't that during the sequence where Gordy was having the nightmare? So you don't know that that's actually what his dad said. It's what Gordy
okay.
thinks
What
his
he
dad
heard.
may have said.
Remember,
I never
Yeah.
thought of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
That's
you know when you
Yeah,
have a
no,
dream
yeah.
about somebody where
Yeah.
you know
it was
you have issues
definitely
with them.
it was definitely him remembering it that
Yeah.
way. Yeah, I don't think it actually happened.
Anyway,
I
for
feel
me,
that way.
3.75 stars, sincerely.
Mm-mm.
Sincerely.
One other funny story I want to relate, just because it's a funny filmmaking story. So when they get to the body itself, they wanted to make sure that the things are very overcast. There's like a storm brewing and stuff, and that was something they really wanted to do. Unfortunately, that summer they didn't have that day, so
Right.
they actually tented like
Huh.
a ridiculous amount of the woods with silks to block out the sun and get it to be darker. And then they brought in every possible wind machine and fan that they could use to get the wind and the bushes and stuff moving. And Rob Reiner was talking about all this and said there's one scene where they're coming down to the body by the river, and there's a bush in the background that's moving a little more than the others because they actually also had to put filament wire on some of the bushes and have people hidden to pull on them and yank them because there just weren't enough wind machines. And I guess the production assistant that was on that particular bush was named Carol. And with all the wind machines going and stuff, they start shooting, and Rob Reiner notices that bush is not moving. Like every other bush is moving, but that one. So he mentioned it to the assistant director, and who had to speak over what's the
Megaphone.
thank you, megaphone. Couldn't think of the word. And loudly over everything is like, Carol, shake your bush. And and it took them 10 minutes to actually recover from the
Yeah, I would think so.
laughter from that. So anyway, it was a funny story. I thought I'd share it.
That is a funny story. Okay.
Joel, real quick, does Gordy say "eat my fat one" to Ace in the book?
That I don't remember. Probably.
Annie?
Yeah, Annie, you just read the book, didn't you?
Well, I don't remember all the dialogue in the book, but you can flip through it and take a look.
It's the biggest one in how many states?
Yeah.
In all the counties, I think.
In 5 counties or whatever. Yeah.
5 counties.
Hang on.
All right. Well, Stand By Me is on Netflix if you
Oh,
subscribe.
wait,
to that.
and I also forgot that John Cusack was in it. I love
Oh,
John.
yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Small part, but a
And
great
ve-
part. Yeah.
Yeah. But and in the credits, he comes very late in the credits.
I said
And
the
then-
same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe because we know him now. Maybe-
Yeah, I was gonna
but he
say,
also-
did we know him then?
No,
It was 2 years after 16 Candles. He would have had some credits, but yeah, no, I think it's because he was in a very, very small part.
And then he did the Short Thing next, right? Wasn't he in the Short Thing?
Yeah, he's in the Sure Thing. He's the lead character, and that's why he's in this movie. Is because Rob Reiner, wanted somebody who could make an impact,
Right.
and he was kind of known, a little bit at that point.
Right.
So it was kind of like, all right, so
And he's so nice to Gordy.
yeah.
Oh my God, the perfect brother.
Mark, to answer your question, I don't even know why I had to pick up the book to read this because I just remembered. That's another change from the book. It's not Gordy that picks up the gun; it's Chris.
I was gonna say, since you said that before, I would have imagined it would have been Chris. Yeah.
But because they switched to Gordy's story, he had
Yes,
to have
it made more
worked.
sense.
It worked so well, and you could tell, like, yeah, he really did come of age at the end of this movie. He
Yeah.
grew up. Yeah.
So about the penis thing, did you find it in the book?
Which penis thing?
What you were just looking
Oh, that.
up.
Oh, no, it's not in there
that
because
big fat one.
it's
whatever.
Gordy
You were
doesn't
able to
say-
see that quickly that it wasn't in there?
Yeah. Yeah, I know where things are. It's
Okay, so it's on Netflix. Rent it for $2.99 from Vudu, which is now Fandango at Home.
yes. Yeah.
Or borrow from your library, but you know what? It's in my collection because it should be. Next week, Annie picked another 80s movie called War Games, Matthew Broderick, 1983. That one is on Max. Joel, did you find your penis?
No, I haven't seen it in years. There's just too
Oh.
much in the way. So
Well, if you want to see if it's really in there, you can post it in the comments. All right, that's it. I'm Frank Gaffney, and we say go watch this movie.
And also with you.